The Vikings raided, plundered, and settled in England for hundreds of years before Harold Godwinson became King of England and defeated Viking King Harald Hardrada of Norway in 1066. However, England did not escape the influence of the Vikings for long, as in the same year, William the Conqueror, who came from a Norse settlement in France called Normandy, invaded and became the first Norman king of England. Contact with the Danes had a marked impact on English culture and language. The English language is a testament to the array of different people who settled in Britain, and its influence include Greek, Latin, and French. Around 26% of the English language comes from the Germanic language, including Old Norse, so you might be surprised how many everyday words come from the Vikings. Number 1. Berserk. This one is probably the most obvious. In English, berserk means out of control with anger or excitement. It comes from the Old Norse berserker, which refers to a raging warrior of superhuman strength. In Norse and Germanic folklore, the berserkers were warriors who worshipped Odin and showed extraordinary savagery in battle. They wore animal skins, and legend has it that these warriors were one of the sources of European werewolf folklore. However, these fighters probably didn't wear wolfskins, as many etymologists believe the word is perhaps a combination of ber, meaning bear, and serker, which translates as shirt. Interestingly, this particular word didn't enter the English language until the mid-1800s, when there was a surge in interest in Scandinavian myths and history. At first, berserk was purely a slang term that has since entered the broader vernacular. Number 2. Anger. Anger is another aggressive word that means a strong feeling of displeasure, or a threatening or violent appearance or state. While this word has several roots, including Proto-Germanic and Dutch, we most likely got it from the Old Norse word anger, meaning grief, which evolved into angra, to vex, distress, to take offense with. It is interesting that the word anger stems from a word meaning grief, as feelings of anger usually stem from a feeling of loss and sometimes lead to a loss of control. The earliest known common use of the word in English with its current meaning comes from the Middle English period, between 1150 and 1500. Number 3. Take. The word take is a transient verb that requires a direct object to put it into context. For example, take can mean to get into one's hands or possession, power, or control. But it can also mean to remove an opponent's piece from play, as in chess. It can mean to grasp or grip something, or to catch or attack through sudden force or influence, such as, for example, taken ill. You can also take a stand or take the time. The word itself comes from the Old Norse word taka, meaning to grasp or lay hold. The fact that this word comes from a Viking origin shouldn't be too surprising given their reputation for raiding. Number 4. Ugly. In modern vernacular, ugly means offensive to the sight, unpleasant to the senses, or morally objectionable. This word stemmed from the Old Norse ugliger, which meant dreadful or fearful, which in turn came from ugga, meaning fear, apprehension, dread. It's not a huge stretch of the imagination to picture the Norse warriors referring to themselves as fearful, and then that word being adopted into English as offensive and objectionable. The word ugly, meaning frightful or horrible in appearance, began being used in the Middle English period, with the meaning evolving into unpleasant to look at and morally offensive in the late 14th century. By the 1680s, the word ugly had softened somewhat in that it was no longer associated with a fearsome appearance and became the antonym for pretty. From the late 17th century, ugly was also used to describe someone's behavior or to denote ill temper. Number 5. Husband. Although the issue of whether the Viking raiders in England were only men or not is still debated, the fact that we get the word husband from Old Norse but not wife is pretty telling. In Norse, husbandi refers to the patriarch of the household, with hus meaning house and bandi signifying occupier and tiller of the soil. The etymology of the English word wife is still disputed, and similar words are found in Proto-Germanic, Old Saxon, Old Frisian, and Middle Dutch. Although a similar word is found in Old Norse, vif, the word kona was much more common when indicating a woman or wife. Interestingly, though, the plural of the word kona was kvenna, which is thought to be one of the sources of the English word queen. Number 6. Days of the week. While all the others seem to be intrinsically linked to the idea that the Vikings were barbarian invaders, this one is slightly more nuanced. The ancient Babylonians named the days of the week after the planets, which can still be seen in French, Italian, and Spanish. However, the Italians and Spaniards changed Saturn Day and Sunday to mean the day of rest and the day of the Lord, Sabato and Domingo. However, the English days of the week are slightly more complicated. While we do have Saturn Day, Sunday, and Moon Day, the rest of the week comes from Viking gods. Tuesday stems from Tyrsdagar or Tyr's Day. Tyr is one of the oldest Germanic gods and is linked to war and justice. One famous myth regarding Tyr is that he placed his hand into the mouth of Fenrir the wolf as a pledge of good faith and used this trust to bind Fenrir, who bit off Tyr's hand. As Tyr had sacrificed a hand for the good of the world, he became connected to oath-keeping. In other European languages, Tuesday is linked to Mars, who was also a war god. The Romans identified Tyr with their god Mars. Wednesday is Odin's Day, or Woden as he was also known. Odin is often parallel to the Roman god Mercury, which is why they share this day of the week. Odin is the one-eyed god associated with wolves and ravens. In many tales, he is the chief of the gods, possessing great magic. Odin was a war god, but was also seen as the god of poets, wisdom, knowledge, and the runic alphabet. Thursday is perhaps the most obvious, as it is Thor's Day. Other European languages associate this day with Jupiter, the Roman god of the sky and thunder, making him Thor's counterpart. Thor was a warrior deity that was benevolent to humanity and an enemy of the race of giants. He was generally a second figure to Odin, and some traditions depicted him as Odin's son. Friday is Frigg's Day. In Norse mythology, Frigg is the queen of Asgard and Odin's wife. She is the goddess of motherhood and marriage and resides in Fensalir, the Hall of the Marshlands. Frigg is often confused or merged with the goddess Freya, as one of the most renowned Norse goddesses who was in charge of love, fertility, battle, and death. The Roman counterpart to both Frigg and Freya was Venus, whom Friday is named after in many Romanic languages. So every week, from Tuesday to Friday, the English-speaking world still pays homage to these pagan gods. Number 7. Cake. This word may be the most surprising on the list, since it's hard to imagine a burly Viking sitting down to tuck into a lovely slice of cake. The Old Norse kaka was used to refer to a flat or comparatively thin mass of baked dough. It first appeared in written English in the Holy Maidenhood, or Holy Maidenhood, which was a treatise written between 1190 and 1225 in the West Midlands of England, extolling the virtues of women entering a holy order. The meaning was expanded in the 15th century to refer to a light composition of flour, sugar, butter, and other ingredients baked in any form, and any flat, round mass, such as a cake of ice or a fish cake. Number 8. Happy. This one might feel a little too warm and fuzzy to be Viking, but it stems from the prefix hap, which is Old Norse for chance and good luck. Legend has it that it was commonly used by Ragnar Lothbrok and his crew when they spoke of good fortune. The English had added the Y by the late 14th century, and the word was then used to denote good luck, favored by fortune, being in advantageous circumstances, prosperous, turning out well. By the 18th century, the use of the word had changed its primary meaning to feeling or showing pleasure or contentment, yet we can see its roots in phrases like a happy accident. Hap also lent itself to other words, including haphazard, combining luck with danger or hazards to denote something random or accidental, and hapless, meaning unfortunate or luckless. Number 9. Place names. Place names that are still used in the UK denote where Vikings settled, and many of these names were taken to America with the English settlers. One of the most famous Viking suffixes was "-by", meaning place, town, or city. This suffix can be seen in the names of places like Whitby, Selby, and Grimsby. Places ending in Thorpe denote a secondary settlement, while those ending in Kirk signified a church. Thwaite came from the Viking word thveit, meaning woodland clearing. Toft indicated the site of a house or building, and Keld meant the location of a spring. Perhaps one of the most famous Viking settlements was York. Previously known as Eoforwic, Saxon for wild boar settlement, the Vikings changed it to Jorvik, which is thought to mean Wild Boar Creek. The name was eventually shortened and evolved into York, meaning that New York actually got its name from the Vikings. Number 10. Pronouns. This one probably comes as a bit of a surprise, but the Vikings came up with the pronouns they, them, and their. Before the Viking influence, Old English third-person pronouns were hi, hiom, and hiora. But this did get confusing as hiom sounded like him and hiora sounded like her. The Vikings used the pronoun piem, pier, and piera. Piem replaced the Old English hiom to become them, while pier took the place of hi, eventually evolving to they, and piera or their superseded hiora. The use of gender-neutral pronouns leads us to a bigger question. Why is English generally a gender-neutral language when other Indo-European languages use grammatical gender? Well, Old English, like Old Norse, had 3 grammatical genders: masculine, feminine, and a fusion of both, which served as a common gender. When Vikings began raiding Britain, the use of gendered grammar began to decline, and by the Middle English period, the English language had lost most of its gendered grammar. Some etymologists believe this was due to the mix of languages with contradictory rules about gendered grammar that led to English favoring gender-neutral language. Although English kept some gendered words, you can thank the Vikings for gender-neutral pronouns. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more about the Vikings, check out our book, History of the Vikings, a captivating guide to the Viking Age and feared Norse seafarers such as Ragnar Lothbrok, Ivar the Boneless, Egil Skilligrimson, and more. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. If you found the video captivating, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.